Caden wiped the grease from his hands and squinted at the fading light over the scrapyard. The twin suns of Virelia were sinking low, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. He loved this hour. The chaos of the spaceport softened, and the clatter of machinery mixed with the distant hum of ships preparing for night flights. Most people avoided the scrapyard after dark, but Caden didn't mind. This was where he felt alive, surrounded by broken ships and forgotten machines, where every piece had a story if you looked closely enough. He was just about to close his tools for the day when a faint, high-pitched whimper reached his ears. At first he thought it was a stray animal, a fox or a small rodent maybe, but the sound was different. It was sharp, almost desperate, and it carried across the wind in a way that made him pause. Caden frowned. "Who's out there?" he muttered, squinting toward the back of the scrapyard, where piles of metal twisted like the bones of some giant creature. He moved cautiously, boots crunching over shards of glass and twisted steel. The whimper came again, louder this time, and Caden froze. He had seen dangerous things before, smugglers, rogue droids, even a few wild desert creatures, but this was something new, something alive and frightened. Creeping closer, he finally saw them. Two tiny creatures, no bigger than a large cat, huddled together beneath a broken freighter hull. Their scales glimmered faintly in the dying sunlight, like molten gold, and their eyes were enormous and wet, staring at him with a mix of fear and hope. Their wings were small and fragile, folded tightly against their bodies, and their little tails twitched nervously. They were dragons, he realized, though unlike any dragons he had ever read about in stories or seen in old holographic archives. Caden's heart skipped a beat. Dragons were supposed to be legends, dangerous and enormous, not trembling in a pile of scrap waiting for someone to feed them. He knelt slowly, careful not to scare them further. "Hey there, little ones, it's okay," he said softly. His voice was gentle, though he had no idea if they could understand him. The whimpering stopped for a moment, replaced by tiny sniffles. One of the hatchlings moved slightly, peeking out from under the other. Its scales caught the last rays of the sun, glowing like embers. Caden could see the sharp ribs beneath its thin skin and the dirt crusted in its eyes. Hunger. He could feel it. They were starving. His stomach tightened. He didn't have much, but he always had scraps of protein packs and some water in his kit. Maybe it wouldn't be enough for much, but it would be something. "Come on," he whispered, reaching into his pack. "Eat a little." The smaller dragon hesitated, then, with cautious curiosity, inched forward and nuzzled the small pouch of food. Its sister followed, wings twitching nervously. Caden smiled despite himself, a rare feeling of warmth spreading through him. He gently placed the food closer until both hatchlings were eating, tiny jaws working quickly, hunger driving their movements. As he watched, Caden thought about what this could mean. He had always loved machines more than people. Ships never lied, never demanded, never betrayed you. But here, in the middle of scrap and rust, life, real, living, breathing life, had found him. And he felt something stir deep inside him. Something he hadn't felt in years: purpose. He stayed with them as the sun disappeared completely, the scrapyard now bathed in the cold glow of the moon and the blinking lights of distant ships. The hatchlings curled up beside him after their small meal, exhausted but alive. Caden made a decision in that quiet moment. No one else could take care of them. If he left, they would die, and that was something he could not allow. He cleared a corner of his workshop, moving spare blankets and broken crates to make a small bed for them. They hesitated, eyes wide, then slowly settled onto the soft pile. One of them twitched its little wings, then fell asleep, head resting on the other's back. Caden sat beside them, watching, listening to their steady, shallow breaths, and wondered how two tiny creatures could hold so much life, so much hope in such small bodies. Night fell fully and the scrapyard became quiet again, but Caden didn't feel alone. For the first time in a long while, he felt connected, not to machines, not to tools, but to life itself. Tomorrow would bring challenges. Keeping two dragons alive in a city that would never understand them was dangerous. But tonight they were safe. And that was enough. Caden leaned back against a stack of scrap, tired but strangely happy. "I'll keep you safe," he whispered to them. "No matter what." The hatchlings twitched in their sleep as if they understood, and for the first time in years, Caden felt like he had done something truly right. Something important. The twin suns were gone, but a new light had entered his life, and it was alive, warm, and breathing right beside him. Days turned into weeks, and Caden quickly learned that raising two dragon hatchlings was nothing like fixing starships. Pyra and Soren were always curious, always moving, and always hungry. Sometimes they knocked over tools or chewed on wires, leaving sparks in their wake. Other times they sat quietly watching him with eyes so bright and knowing that he felt like they understood more than any human ever could. Caden's small workshop became a strange home. Broken machines lined the walls and scraps of metal were stacked in every corner, but now there were blankets and crates for the dragons to sleep in. He made little feeding stations from old bowls and trays, mixing whatever protein paste he could find with water to make it soft enough for their tiny mouths. He had to feed them several times a day. If he skipped even one meal, they cried with tiny high-pitched whimpers that tugged at his heart. At first, the hatchlings were shy and cautious. Pyra hid behind Soren, peeking at him with wide, nervous eyes whenever he approached. But Caden never forced them. He spent hours sitting on the floor, talking softly while he worked on machines, letting them come to him. Gradually they began to trust him. They would curl up on his lap while he cleaned engine parts, or follow him around the workshop as he fixed broken droids and starship parts. Caden discovered something remarkable about them. The dragons could sense energy around machines. When a wire was loose or a circuit was about to short, they twitched or hissed. Sometimes they would nudge a tool in the exact spot where a part was broken, as if guiding him. He laughed out loud the first time it happened, almost falling into a pile of scrap. "You two are better mechanics than me," he joked. But he knew it was serious, they could really help him. Despite their small size, they were fierce when threatened. A stray dog wandered into the scrapyard one morning, snarling and snapping. Pyra let out a tiny roar, small but sharp enough to scare the animal away. Soren puffed his little chest, wings flaring, and the dog ran off. Caden couldn't stop smiling. "You're both full of surprises," he said, ruffling their heads. Life wasn't easy. Sometimes he worried about keeping them fed. Protein packs and nutrient gels were expensive, and the local traders frowned on someone keeping creatures as unusual as dragons. He had to be careful, sneaking food from the docks or trading scrap for supplies. But every time he watched them eat, small faces lit with happiness, he knew it was worth it. Caden also began teaching them small skills. He couldn't teach them to fly yet, their wings were too weak, but he taught them to respond to his calls and follow simple commands. "Sit," he would say, and Pyra would lower herself onto the blankets. "Stay," and Soren would remain still, tail curled neatly around him. It was like having two apprentices, though not human. He laughed at how serious they took their lessons. One night, while working late, Caden noticed that Pyra's scales glowed faintly in the dark. The glow pulsed slowly, almost like a heartbeat, and he realized it was tied to her mood. When she was calm, the glow was soft. When she was excited or scared, it flared brightly. Soren's glow was similar, but more golden than red. He couldn't explain it, but he felt proud. These weren't ordinary dragons. They were something special. As the days passed, the bond between them grew stronger. Pyra would nuzzle his arm when he returned from the spaceport, and Soren would curl up beside him when he slept. Caden found himself talking to them about his past, about his father who had taught him to fix engines, and about the dreams he had once thought were impossible. Somehow they listened. Somehow they understood. One morning, a trader passing by stopped to look in through the workshop door. His eyes widened. "Are those dragons?" he asked, disbelief written across his face. Caden shrugged. "Yes, two of them. They're hungry sometimes, but they're learning fast." The trader shook his head. "People will talk. You can't hide them forever." Caden smiled, not worried. "Maybe. But for now they're safe." That night, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, Caden sat on the floor while Pyra and Soren curled up beside him. The workshop smelled of oil and metal, but also of warmth, trust, and life. He realized something important. Survival wasn't just about food or shelter. It was about care, patience, and courage. And every day he learned more from the dragons than they could ever learn from him. Caden whispered to them, "I'll protect you. No matter what comes." They twitched their wings as if agreeing, small bodies warm against his legs. He closed his eyes, exhausted but happy, knowing that together, they could face anything the galaxy might throw at them. For the first time in years he didn't feel alone. He had Pyra and Soren, and that was enough. 5 years had passed since Caden first found Pyra and Soren in the scrapyard. The small hatchlings had grown into young dragons, their scales gleaming in shades of red and gold, and their wings now strong enough to lift them into short flights around the workshop. They were still small compared to the ancient dragons of legend, but their presence was powerful, almost magical. Caden had never imagined that two tiny hungry creatures could change his life so completely. His workshop had grown too. What once was a small corner among broken ships was now a maze of machines, tools, and dragon perches. Pipes and wires snaked along the walls, some repaired, some still waiting for his attention. but now dragons' nests and blankets were carefully arranged throughout. Pyra and Soren moved through it all like they owned the place, though they always came to him when he called. Caden had changed too. His arms were stronger from years of lifting engines, but his heart had grown in ways he hadn't expected. He had learned patience, careful planning, and above all, the value of life. He spent his days fixing ships, crafting small machines, and feeding and training the dragons. They had learned to respond to his commands perfectly. Pyra would scan an engine and nudge the correct tool. Soren could sense energy surges and warn of short circuits. Together they made Caden's work faster and more precise than ever. Despite the safety of the workshop, Caden always worried about the world outside. News from the Imperial Court occasionally reached the outer colonies, and stories of dragons were met with fear, suspicion, or greed. He knew that one day someone might come looking for Pyra and Soren. But he pushed the thought aside, focusing on the present. Every day with them was precious, and he refused to live in fear. The dragons had developed their own personalities. Pyra was bold and curious, always exploring new corners of the workshop, testing wires and circuits with her glowing claws. Soren was quieter, thoughtful, and cautious, watching everything carefully before acting. They complemented each other perfectly, just as they complemented Caden. He often thought about how strange life was. He, a human mechanic, had become a guardian and teacher to creatures more magical than most people believed existed. One evening, while watching the twin suns set over the horizon, Caden noticed something unusual. Pyra's glow pulsed brighter than normal, and Soren's eyes seemed to flicker with energy. He frowned, feeling a strange hum in the air, like the energy in the scrapyard itself had shifted. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but he sensed that it was significant. That night, while the dragons slept curled beside him, Caden reflected on the past 5 years. They had been hard, but they had been worth it. He had seen Pyra and Soren grow from fragile, hungry hatchlings into creatures with intelligence, strength, and a bond that nothing could break. He had given them life, and they had given him purpose in return. But the galaxy was vast, and Caden knew that life beyond the scrapyard could be dangerous. Strange signals often appeared in his old sensors, traces of distant energy signatures he couldn't identify. Sometimes he saw ships moving through the stars far above Virilia, ships unlike any traders or freighters he had seen before, sleek, fast, and heavily armed. He didn't know who they were or what they wanted, but a small part of him feared that the dragon's unusual energy had drawn attention. One morning, as Caden was repairing a small engine, Pyra suddenly leapt onto the workbench, her claws tapping against the metal. Her eyes glowed brighter than usual, and she hissed softly. Soren followed, wings twitching nervously. Caden paused, noticing that the hum of energy he had felt before was stronger now, almost like a pulse coming from the dragons themselves. Something was approaching. Caden stepped back and scanned the sky through the open scrapyard door. In the distance, he saw faint silhouettes of ships descending, sleek and fast, their energy signatures unlike any normal patrol or trader. His heart tightened. He knew instantly what this meant. The dragon's powers had not gone unnoticed. Someone important was coming for them, and he wasn't sure if he could stop them. He turned to Pyra and Soren. "You two are ready for anything, right?" he asked quietly, more to steady himself than the dragons. They nudged him gently as if reassuring him. The bond they had formed over 5 years had become unbreakable. They trusted him completely, and he trusted them in return. Caden realized something then. The small acts of kindness he had shown 5 years ago, feeding 2 starving dragon hatchlings, had rippled across the galaxy in ways he could never have imagined. They were no longer just dragons. They were powerful, rare creatures, tied to secrets older than any human memory. And that knowledge carried danger. As the sun disappeared behind the horizon, leaving the scrapyard bathed in twilight, Caden made a silent promise. Whoever came for them, he would protect Pyra and Soren. No matter what the galaxy threw at them, they would face it together. And in that moment he felt something he hadn't felt in years, hope, fierce and bright, like the dragon's own glowing scales. The future was uncertain. But Caden, Pyra, and Soren were ready. The morning began quietly, as it always did in Caden's scrapyard. Pyra and Soren were stretching their wings, testing the air currents inside the workshop. Caden was working on a broken hover engine, humming softly while tightening a loose wire. The sun painted golden streaks across the metal walls, and for a moment, everything felt peaceful. Then the hum in the air changed. It was subtle at first, almost like a vibration under his feet, but Caden felt it immediately. He froze, wrench in hand. Pyra stiffened, wings twitching, and Soren let out a low hiss. The small dragon's glows pulsed brighter, warning him of something he hadn't seen before. Caden ran to the doorway, heart hammering. Above the scrapyard, 3 sleek ships descended, their hulls dark and polished, cutting through the sky with perfect precision. They weren't traders and they weren't patrols. These ships carried a presence, authority, power, and danger all at once. Caden's stomach tightened. He had feared this day might come, but he had never imagined it so soon. A squad of uniformed figures stepped out, each moving with perfect coordination. Their armor gleamed in the morning light, and their helmets reflected the scrapyard like glass. Caden recognized them immediately from old reports, the Empress's guard. Elite soldiers, feared across the outer colonies for their skill, their discipline, and their ruthlessness. They had come for him. Caden stepped forward, hands raised slightly. "I don't know what you want," he said, trying to keep his voice calm. "These are just creatures I've been taking care of." One of the guards stepped closer, helmet visor reflecting the dragon's glow. "They are not just creatures," the guard said in a low, steady voice. "They carry the blood of the ancients. The Empress demands their return. You are to surrender them immediately." Caden's mind raced. He had never imagined that the dragon's unusual energy would tie them to royal bloodlines or ancient secrets. And yet, here they were, standing before him, weapons ready, prepared to take them by force. Pyra hissed, small but sharp, wings spreading slightly. Soren crouched low, tail flicking, ready to leap. Caden held up a hand, signaling them to wait. "I'm not giving them up," he said, voice firm. "They've done nothing wrong and I'm not letting anyone hurt them." The guard raised a weapon, and the hum of energy in the dragons grew louder. They didn't attack, not yet, but their bodies shimmered with power. Pyra's wings began to glow red, Soren's golden, light pulsing like living fire. The soldiers took a cautious step back, sensing the energy that radiated from them. Caden's heart pounded. He knew they could not fight an entire squad by themselves, but together they were strong. He needed a plan. Thinking fast, he grabbed a coil of wire and a few metal rods from the workshop, improvising a small device. Sparks flew as he connected circuits, creating a temporary energy field around the entrance. The guards hesitated, unsure what he was doing, and the dragons let out warning cries, teeth bared and claws extended. The first charge of the guards' weapons met a wall of shimmering light. Sparks arced off the metal as the dragons pulsed, sending out waves of energy that disrupted the soldiers' instruments. Caden ducked behind a crate, heart racing but also exhilarated. He had never felt more alive. Pyra darted forward, small but fast, knocking a weapon from one of the guards' hands. Soren followed, twisting in the air to nudge another soldier back. The 2 dragons moved with perfect coordination, anticipating each other's actions as if they had trained for this moment their whole lives. Caden could only watch, improvising and guiding them, making sure no one was seriously hurt. Finally, the leader of the squad raised his hands. "Enough," he said, voice firm. "This is not a game. Stand down, human." Caden didn't move. He looked at Pyra and Soren, their wings trembling with power but waiting for his command. "I can't," he said. "They're not just dragons. They're my responsibility. And I will protect them." There was a long pause. The leader studied Caden, as if weighing something deeper than defiance or obedience. Then slowly he stepped back. "The Empress will hear of this," he said, turning to signal the others. "But for now, you live." Caden exhaled, muscles relaxing as Pyra and Soren lowered their wings. The glow faded slightly, though they still watched the guards warily. He crouched and rubbed their heads gently. "It's okay," he whispered. "You're safe, for now." As the Empress's guard retreated to their ships and ascended into the sky, Caden realized something important. The world beyond the scrapyard was dangerous, far more than he had imagined. But he also knew that Pyra and Soren were ready and together they could face it. Their bond, forged over 5 years of care, trust and courage, was stronger than any weapon or soldier. Caden looked at the empty sky, feeling both fear and pride. He had saved 2 hungry, abandoned creatures, and now they had saved him in return. And somewhere deep in the stars he knew, someone powerful was watching, taking note of the human who dared to protect dragons. The future was uncertain. But Caden, Pyra and Soren were ready. The sky above the scrapyard was quiet now, the Empress's guard long gone, but Caden didn't feel safe. He knew that they would return with more soldiers, stronger weapons and fewer doubts. He looked at Pyra and Soren, who were resting but alert, eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. They had survived their first encounter with the Empress's guard, but he knew the next challenge would be harder. Caden spent the night thinking. He scavenged parts from old machines, rewiring circuits, building small devices, anything that might help him defend the dragons and himself. He set up energy traps along the yard and reinforced the workshop with metal sheets and wires, improvising barriers that would confuse sensors or slow down intruders. All the while, Pyra and Soren watched him, their wings twitching with curiosity and energy. They seemed to understand that something bigger was coming. The next morning the warning came. A ship unlike any he had seen hovered above the scrapyard, large and imposing, black with gold trim. A voice boomed through a speaker. Caden of Virelia. The Empress demands your immediate presence. Bring the dragons. Caden shook his head. I won't, he said aloud, more to himself than to anyone. He crouched and spoke softly to the dragons. Stay close. Follow my lead. We do this together. Pyra and Soren nudged him, wings fluttering. He felt their trust and knew they would fight with him if needed. The ship landed, sending a cloud of dust and debris into the scrapyard. Soldiers poured out, weapons glowing. But Caden didn't panic. He had spent the night preparing and the dragons were ready. Pyra let out a sharp cry, her wings flaring and pulsing with red light. Soren's golden glow rippled through the air. The soldiers hesitated, sensing the strange power emanating from the creatures. Caden activated his improvised devices. Sparks flew as energy fields created temporary barriers, confusing the soldiers' instruments. Pyra and Soren moved with precision, small but fast, using their energy pulses to knock weapons aside and disable machinery. They didn't attack humans to harm them. Instead, they protected themselves and Caden, showing power without cruelty. The leader of the soldiers stepped forward, a human in shining armor, his voice calm but commanding. Caden, the Empress will not be pleased. Stand down and there will be mercy. Caden's gaze met the leader's and he shook his head. I won't give them up. They're not weapons. They're alive and they're mine to protect. He glanced at the dragons. We've faced danger before. We can do it again. The leader hesitated, studying Caden and the dragons. He could see the bond between them, the loyalty and courage that no soldier's training could break. The Empress, he said slowly, will understand if she sees this herself. Stand down for now. Caden didn't relax, but he lowered the improvised barriers. The soldiers stepped back and a holographic projection appeared above the ship, a regal woman with a crown of gold and a piercing gaze. The Empress herself. I have observed your actions, Caden of Virelia. Her voice echoed across the yard. You have protected what most would destroy. You have shown courage, ingenuity, and heart. For this, you are not my enemy. Caden blinked. You're not here to take them? The Empress shook her head. No. You have done what humans often forget. You have cared even when it was inconvenient, dangerous, or foolish. Your compassion has created a bond that cannot be ignored. Pyra and Soren are special, and so are you. Caden felt a rush of relief but also disbelief. After 5 years of caring, of sleepless nights and constant worry, the Empress, one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, recognized the value of what he had done. You will not be punished, she continued. Instead, I offer you a place among my advisors. You and your dragons have gifts that the Empire can use, and I trust you to guide us with the same wisdom you have shown here. Caden looked at Pyra and Soren, their wings folded but glowing softly. He reached out, brushing their scales gently. We did it, he whispered. Together. The soldiers and the ship disappeared into the sky, leaving the scrapyard calm once more. Caden knew the galaxy would never be the same. He had started with 2 hungry hatchlings, and now they were part of something bigger, something that could change the course of events across star systems. Sitting on the floor with the dragons curled beside him, he realized the truth. Humanity was not defined by weapons, ships, or power. It was defined by the choices humans made, the care they gave, and the courage to stand up for what was right. He had risked everything to protect 2 small lives, and in doing so, he had proven that humans could be extraordinary. Caden smiled, tired but happy as Pyra and Soren nuzzled him. The sun rose over Virelia, painting the scrapyard in warm light. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but he no longer feared them. He had dragons, courage, and a purpose. Together they would face anything. And somewhere far away the Empress watched, knowing that one human's simple act of kindness had changed the galaxy in ways no one could have predicted.